This is my interview with Albert C. Jones. What was life like during the Great Depression?
Well, there wasn't any money, and there weren't too many jobs, and we lived on the farm. And of course, we had plenty to eat, and Dad would load up a load of corn. They had a water wheel mill down at Morrow, Pillsbury run it. We'd take a load of corn down to the mill and trade it in for rolled oats and flour and cornmeal and wheat hearts. They call it cream of wheat now. Yeah. But we got all this at the mill in sacks or barrels. And that would be our winter supply of everything we needed to eat. We butchered our own meat. We had chickens for eggs, and we had cows for milk and butter. And a farmer was better off during the Depression than anybody else because he had plenty to eat. And of course, like I say, there was no money. I think corn was 10 cents a bushel. And hogs, weren't too much. And living was cheap, but you didn't have a whole lot of everything.
So you thought farmers had an advantage?
Oh yes, farmers had the advantage. We didn't have electricity. Electricity hadn't got out there yet during the Depression. We had kerosene lights or these like a gasoline lantern they have nowadays. We had they called them mantle lamps that burnt gasoline, and you cooked on a wood stove and heated water on the wood stove to wash with because, like I say, you didn't have washing machines and all that. They had to do it by hand, or if you was fortunate enough, Maytag came out with a washing machine that had a gasoline engine on it. Yeah, and we had one of those, and it was just different.
Yeah.
See, it was just a different way of life.
I think it was a hard time to live in.
No, not necessarily.
Just
hard times are right now.
Yeah. That's sure. Do you remember any experiences that stick in your mind during this time? Good or bad, either?
What kind of experiences?
Anything that sticks in your mind, doesn't have any significance.
Well, you mean like kids playing or something like this? I
Sure.
Well, see, we didn't have a lot of toys or anything.
Yeah.
We had everything was horse and buggy or wagons. We did have an automobile. I forget what it was. It was a Model T Ford. But we would play with things on the farm there, like the four wheels and just the tongue in an old buggy or something, and we were small kids, and some of us would push and the others would back up to the wheel and catch it with your hands and stand in with your, and you just turn around like a pinwheel around with that wheel, and just nothing sensational. It was just something that we had fun with, it just
made your own toys.
Yeah, made your own playthings, so to speak.
Yeah. What was your opinion of Hitler from what you heard during the war?
Well, I was in the war, World War II, and the biggest opinion, I never got to see him or know him, just heard about him on the news, and the general opinion was that he was a crazy man. He thought he could conquer the world, and that just don't happen to anybody. Nobody can conquer the world. And of course, the Germans had very fine steel mills. Some of the best steel that was made at that time was made by the Germans. Some of the best leather products, and all the German soldiers had great uniforms.
Best equipment.
Best equipment. But But like I say, the general opinion of Hitler was that he was a crazy man. Or struck with the thought that he could gain the world, which anybody knows no man can do that.
That was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Was Franklin D. Roosevelt, was he like a person during the war? Did everybody like him?
Oh, yeah. I think he was elected for 4 terms, 16 years, I think, in the White House. See, now they limit it to 2 terms, 8 years. But he was elected for 4 terms, and it was quite a sad day for everybody when he died. Everybody liked him. Everybody doesn't like everybody, but the general opinion was for him to be elected 4 different times that people liked him. And he did a lot of good.
Yeah.
He started Social Security, and back in those days they had what they called 3C camps. It was kind of like the National Guard. You were in I guess it was a branch of the Army. But what they did was build bridges.
Like the Red Cross or something like that?
Well, they were work parties.
Yeah.
At Fort Ancient, all the lookouts and everything over there, all those stone things. Now, the 3C camp boys helped do that, along with the WPA.
So just for like jobs, or just give people jobs, is how it was?
Yeah. And he also started it was PWA, not the WPA. It was Public Works Administration, which instead of just giving everybody food stamps and paying them for being on relief, they had to go out and work to earn their way, you see. And a lot of people work on the public works projects.
What part of the armed forces were you in?
I was in the Army. I was in the South Pacific. I first went to Hawaii, and then we went through the Marshall and the Gilbert Islands, and Wetuck and Truk, and then I went on to Okinawa, and from there, after we settled things there, I was on the first boatload to go into Korea to disarm the Japs that were in Korea. And it was quite an experience. You don't like to talk about the bad things, but there was a lot of good stuff in there. A lot of fun, and made a lot of friends. And you depended on each other. It's just kind of like today they teach you in swimming class to buddy up, have somebody with you all the time. Well, that's the way it was in service. You buddied up with somebody and you looked out for each other.
What was the home front like?
Well, there was a lot of shortages. You see, the grocery stores would say, well, we can't get pepper because it's all gone to their servicemen. Well, the servicemen couldn't get pepper either because it all came from Saigon is a big producer of spices, cinnamon and some of these other spices. And we were at war, and we was using all our facilities to get troops and ammunition and clothes to the servicemen, and they didn't have enough commercial ships to get everything back here to this country that we needed. See? And besides that, it wasn't safe for the commercial
torpedoes.
Yes, because of the submarines and stuff that was out there. They had to be convoyed in a convoy with the military escorts.
Because of German U-boats?
German U-boats and the Japanese subs also, and so it was fighting every place. And we just could not spare the ships to escort these freighters back and forth. because we had to have them ships for supplies for us. If a freighter came back, why, he might bring something, but when he went back over, he was carrying Army supplies and stuff over, and escorted with an Army escort, a lot of them. And they even, when I came home from Korea, I was on a converted oil tanker that the government had taken over because they needed the troop ships to get transport. There was lots of soldiers, Marines, and Navy men over there in that part of the world, in England and the South Pacific. It took a lot of ships to haul all these guys. They even took, when they troop transports, like if we were on the training in Lower California out there in the Mojave Desert, and they sent me to Camp Kilmer, New Jersey, where we're going to Africa, when Rommel had a big campaign going over there. But Rommel had the situation in hand, so when we got to Camp Kilmer, well, they sent us back to Seattle to go to the South Pacific. But see, these, we're talking now box cars, cattle cars that they put beds in out of 2x4s and stretched canvas across them, and they stacked them about 4 or 5 high, and that was the way we traveled across the country, in cattle cars with canvas bunks stretched across them.
That's how I handled the concentration camp.
Well, that's how they couldn't move that many men on regular trains because they just didn't have that many. See, this was an unexpected thing when this World War II started.
Right. That's why was the significance of Pearl Harbor realized at the time? Was it?
Well, that was a shock to us too.
I mean, that's what initially got us in the war.
Yeah, I know. But you see, the Japanese come into Pearl Harbor there in Hawaii, and that's where we had our naval base, and half of the Pacific Fleet was in harbor at the time, and they just come in there and bombed them all, see, and caught us unexpectedly.
Right. What do you think would happen if the aircraft carriers would have been in the harbor at the time?
Well,
that'd been a real devastating blow.
Oh yes, it would. But they got enough of them as it was. I don't know how many ships went down over there for sure.
About 20 or something.
Because I was in, when that happened, I was in Fort Knox, Kentucky.
So that was pretty, which was shocking. Was there a lot of propaganda against Japan and Germany in the U.S.?
There always is. There always is.
Was it all bad? Or
no, you see, in order to get a guy mad enough to fight, to shoot another man, now they got to make you believe that he is your enemy. Now you either shoot him first or he's going to shoot you. Now this was drilled into us. They was the enemy, and you get them first if you're going to come back home.
I'm supposed to think about it.
See, and I don't know whether you call that propaganda or that's brainwashing or what you call it, but that's what was happening. In order to make a man mad enough to do these kind of things, they had to do something to you, and this was the psychology they used on us to get you mad enough to want to shoot somebody.
That's what you had to if you want to survive.
Yeah.
What was the economy like during the Depression?
Very bad. Now, I'll give you an example. I graduated from high school in 1941. Well, my junior and senior years, I worked at Kroger's. I started to work for 25 cents an hour. Now, when you got to be a full-time grocery clerk, you was only making $30 to $33 a week. But But I worked there after schools and on weekends, and I did work up to produce manager, and I got to be a manager of one of their stores down in Mason. Not the big one that's down there now. There was another little one down there. But the economy was bad. At that time when I worked at Kroger's, 3 pound of coffee was 39 cents. Now it's $2.50.
That was a lot of money at the time.
Oh yeah, when you're making 25 cents an hour. And wages were very small. The $35 a week was good wages back in those times. Now this was after the Depression, before the war came. But now when the war came on, they started all these defense plants because they didn't have any tanks, they didn't have enough planes, they didn't have enough ships. Down there at King's Mills, they had an ammunition factory, Peter's Cartridge Company, and they was making ammunition. But the government came out and said they'd build the plants and put somebody in there in charge of them, making anything you done for the government was whatever it cost you to make it plus the material. Cost plus material. Like making ammunition for the government. But Peter's Cartridge Company was getting whatever it cost them, like man hours or keeping the plant open or all, whatever it cost them, plus the material. Well, I don't know whether they got a percentage on top of that or not, but this is the way, because they had to get help and they had to get it quick and they had to get material and stuff quick because we didn't have anything.
Is that why Germany conquered all those places so quick? Because they already had the tanks and everything?
They had to build up a supply of it, see. They had kept this a secret and had supply dumps built up, and they had tanks and everything made already, see. But we didn't have anything.
Do we know about that? That they were doing that?
I doubt it. I don't know whether we did or not.
So
we might have suspected it, but your spy system never gets the full details on anything back in those days, you see. They've got a better spy system
Even
now.
Now it's hard.
Yeah, but they never got enough information about anything like that in those days.
Just kind of guessed.
Yeah, just kind of guessed, and they didn't really know how much stuff they had. But they caught us and they caught Britain without being ready.
What do you think would happen if they would took over Britain?
Well, I don't know. See, Britain is an island, and they had a navy.
Right.
They had the best navy in the world at one time because they had pieces of ground scattered all over the world, so, and they had to be able to get to them. But as far as air support goes, why, they didn't have it. That's why Germany come over there and bombed them pretty near off of the island, because they didn't have any enough planes to repel the attacks. And we were in that same shape.
What were some new inventions that changed daily life?
New inventions?
Yeah.
Well, television. You see, I never knew what a television was until about, I guess 1948 or 50, along in there. And then the programs weren't anything like they are today. They were mostly musicals or comedies or soap operas, something like that. But you didn't get any nature programs or any really vital information on your television much, except the daily news, and sometimes you couldn't even believe that. And you can't today sometimes believe what all they tell you on there. But television was one thing, and every home now has a telephone, where it used to be maybe they'd be scattered throughout, the towns or the country, and automobiles have come a long ways. Of course, they had them back then, but there's nothing like today's automobiles. Top speed out of them back then was about 35 or 40 mile an hour. And the trucks that haul the stuff nowadays and everything like that. But there's a lot of inventions. All your kitchen appliances, your mixers and all that. That's new stuff.
What was the one invention you think that really changed life?
The one invention,
Yeah, really.
I imagine communications there, so that everybody knew television was a great communicator. See, before that, well, you had to hear it on the radio, and I think communications is one of the best things that we have nowadays, because we know an hour after something happens clear around the world, well, we know about it, see, and we can prepare for things like that. It's just like those tornadoes that hit Mexico down there, down in the Yucatan Peninsula there in Mexico. Well, see, after the tornado came through there, and we had the Red Cross and the United States had supplies and stuff down there to help those people. And the earthquake in California, see, how long did it take for us to get out there and start helping people? This is because of the communications we have. See, if we were still waiting for the Pony Express to get a letter in here, it might be a month before we ever knew it happened. And by that time, half those people was already been dead. And communications is a great thing. One of the greatest things that electricity, of course, they had it then, but it wasn't widespread throughout. Everybody's got electricity now. And
it's real expensive. Was it really expensive?
No, nothing was expensive because nobody had any money.
It just wasn't a necessity, so.
It just, they didn't get the lines out here.
Oh, okay.
I can remember when they built the lines in through the country here. See, about 50 years ago.
What were some fads during this time?
Fads?
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I don't know. Dressing. and some of the dancing that they did, and I don't know really if they had fads. I never had one that I know of. We used to, for entertainment, we used to have an ice cream parlor. Well, a couple of them in Lebanon, and the kids could all gather in there and have milkshakes or ice cream or sandwiches, and different things like that. They don't have anything like that for kids anymore around. But we had a place we could go and have fun, and we could, the jukebox, we could dance if we wanted to, and it was, we had stuff to do. Well, of course, now this is after I get older. This was back in.
Wasn't married yet.
Huh?
You wasn't married yet.
It was in the early 40s, I guess. Long in there, 39, 38, 39, 40, long in there somewhere. But they had, of course, they got a roller rink now. They didn't have one for a long time. We had a big roller rink up there across from the fairgrounds. And there was a lot of stuff you could do, some of the fads.
Or more now.
I suppose that's a fad, I don't know, but it was something to do.
Something to do. How has the U.S. economy changed
Well,
in general?
The wages have got higher. Makes the cost of living higher. And you make a lot of money, but it takes a lot of money just to live. And back then you could live without money, pretty near.
a lot easier now.
Really, we didn't know there was a depression on because we had stuff to eat. See, and a lot of people were going hungry, but we had raised all our own food, so to speak. And we had extra. We sold eggs, we sold cream to get money to buy sugar and salt and the stuff you needed and a few clothes, you know. You didn't have 6 pairs of shoes. You had 1 pair of shoes, or maybe 2 if you was lucky. You wore one for every day, and you wore one for church on Sunday when you dressed up. Back then you could buy a pair of overalls. We call them overalls. I call them jeans nowadays. But you could buy a pair of overalls for 98 cents. Now they want $36 for them. See, and it didn't take so much money back then. People make a lot of money nowadays, but it doesn't go anyplace because everything is so high. But you know, unions, when they started out, were to benefit working conditions, to make these factories put guards on the belts and on the machinery so you wouldn't get an arm cut off. And it was good. But nowadays, they don't think about that. They think about wages, see, and wages are got so high that the price of everything else has to get so high. I bought a Model A Ford when I graduated from high school for $19. An automobile. No.
Was it new?
No, it was a used one. But you couldn't even buy a spare tire off of one for $19 nowadays. But a new car back in those days was only about $600-700. This car was 10 years old and still run good. Clayton and I, when I graduated, we took a trip out west. We went all up through Yellowstone and all up through Montana and all over the west out there. We were gone a month in this $19 automobile, and all we done was put gas and oil in it, and that's. So, you see, it didn't take so much. Gas was 5 gallons for $1. Now you're paying over $1 a gallon. See, so times have changed, and the attitude of people has changed. It used to be that you never locked your door because nobody was going to come in your house and steal anything. But now you can't even go to the bar unless you lock the kitchen door because somebody's liable to walk in and carry off your television. But the attitude of people has changed there. Everybody nowadays wants something for nothing. And if I've got more than somebody else has got, they think they should have part of mine, even though I worked all my life to get it. And they just starting out, they think just because I got more than they got that I should give them something. And if I don't give it to them, they sneak around at night and steal it off of me, you see. Now this is the attitude of the world. This is not just our locality. This is the whole world attitude is like this. Everybody thinks that they should have something for nothing.
I mean, how are people's morals different from that?
Well, that kind of explains part of the morals right there. Here's some of the morals. Now, I'll tell you. The homosexuals are even preaching. Now, to me, this is wrong. The Bible I read, the King James Version, says this is wrong in the eyes of God. And divorce is another thing. You can get a divorce by the Bible, but you can't get remarried. If you get remarried, you're living in adultery, see? Now, the morals has completely gone. And the ministers from the pulpit don't preach morals. They preach what people want to hear so they can keep their job. See? Now this is how the morals have changed. The church is not teaching morals anymore.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know why that is. Because of public opinion, I guess.
Part of capitalism?
Well, I don't think it's part of capitalism. I think it's just the way the world has changed. You see, it all started back during the war when the government would pay you to do something, whatever it cost. You see, a lot of these companies, when it was getting cost plus material to build planes and make ammunition and tanks, and that's for the service, when the government paid them cost plus material, they had 6 men doing the job. That it only took one because they were getting paid for these 6 guys that they had hired. You see? See what I'm saying to you? Now this started the moral decay of the country. And I know people here in Lebanon that have been on relief that won't work. They expect you to keep them, and the working people has to keep the poor people because they're too trifling to work. Ready?
Yeah.
I know families in town that have been on relief for 3 generations. The father, and he had kids, and his kids is on relief, and then his kids is on relief. 3 generations because they're too trifling to work. They found out they go to work, they get more of a relief than they can working because they won't get an education. Education is a wonderful thing. Nobody can take that away from you. What you got in your head stays there. And these people won't get an education that will allow them to go out in the world and earn a living. So they expect somebody to keep them. So this is part of the moral decay of the country. It's just the same way with the government has so many programs. I don't want to say too much about all of them. People think I'm a communist or something. But when the country is short on food and they pay a man so much an acre just to let that field lay there because they don't want any more food on the market to keep the price up, this is wrong, Darren. And that's more moral decay that causes people to not want to do anything. So.
Did you have any bad times during the war? I mean, I'm sure you did, but...
Oh, not really. Not really.
Yes.
Oh, you see, you might be carrying a gun on your shoulder, but that don't mean you're not scared a little bit.
Of course.
and it's, there were some rough times, but nothing real serious. You know.
Yeah. How'd you deal with them?
Well, you just
Get through it?
just get through it, that's all. You just get through it, do the best you can do.
That's part of your duty.
Part of your duty. Whatever you had to do, you done. You know, survival is the main thing. Survival.
Is that what they told you?
Sure.
What were some forms of entertainment?
In the service?
And eating, that's, both service and...
Well, they had service clubs. Now, each army camp had a service club. They called them service clubs, where you could go. It was kind of like they had PX, where you could go buy a beer or a Coke or whatever you wanted. And some of them had a few snacks you could buy there, and a place where you could buy your toothpaste and your soap and shaving lotion, whatever you needed. And usually there was a dance hall if you wanted to go dance, or sometimes they had movies and entertainment for you, and well, we even had that on Okinawa. We had movies over there, and they'd bring live entertainers around.
Like Bob Hope.
Bob Hope was one of them.
Did you ever see him?
No, he didn't start that till after I got out. But we did have some of the others. I don't know now who they were. I forgot who some of them were. I used to could remember, but I don't know anymore.
Did they have movies on the war? They took movies on the war.
No.
You never saw anything like that?
No. They had, just like the regular old movies, like Gregory Peck or these old-fashioned movies, love stories and all that. And, yeah. But they didn't show you any war pictures. You was in it. You didn't have to see it. They showed us a lot of training films, to know what a German plane looked like or a Japanese plane and different things like that to try to help you survive this thing, So you wouldn't shoot down your own plane. You didn't want to do that. But they had entertainment for you, but you couldn't always get to it if you was pulling guard duty or KP duty or something else, corporal of the guard or something like that. Why you didn't get to see a lot of it, but it was there for the masses to see. Everybody didn't get to see all this because somebody had to carry on the work. Just like going to a football game. Everybody can't play because they've got to have referees and linesmen and coaches and all this. See, everybody's not in the game, but there's a lot of support for the game. And that's the same way in the service. You had to have a support group around you all the time, taking care of things while you was having a good time. I think they said it took 10 men on the ground just to keep one man up in the air flying.
More than that now.
It's probably more than that now. I don't know.
Sure. About 50 men
now. But life wasn't so bad. But
didn't know any better, so.
No, you didn't know any better. You just made the best of what you had. And it'll, see the farmers used to rotate their crops. They'd plant corn and beans or wheat, and then they'd go to hay, and this way it kept the ground fertile all the time.
So
But now you see they go in and they spray to kill all the vegetation. They don't even plow it. And then they go in and plant their corn, and they do this year after year after year and put all this herbicides and fungicides, insecticides on the ground, and now they're going back to the old way again. They're rotating and plowing their corn.
So it hasn't worked.
And because the EPA is getting, our environment is going to pieces.
Right.
So you see, it's just like fashions. If you got a coat that's in fashion today, well, if you can still wear that coat 20 years from now, it'll probably be back in fashion, see? And that's the way everything runs in a cycle. And the same way now the farming industry is that way. And it used to be the Indians had herb cures for about everything. Well, they're trying to get that now. They're finding plants all over the world that do different things, and one of these days they'll probably find one that'll cure cancer. I don't know.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think is going to happen to farmers? What do you think is going to happen to farmers?
Well,
they're doing very good now.
As long as you want to eat, you better take care of those farmers. They're producing your food. They got to milk the cows to put that gallon of milk in the grocery store. And they got to raise the wheat so you can get that flour to make your biscuits. And all that's it. And farming industry is the tail end, it seems like, of everything. Because, to give you an example, up there in Michigan where we go fishing, they raise a lot of navy beans. They pay the farmer 10 cents a pound. He hauls them in there in a big truck, dumps them down in this little hole in the cement there, the elevator. They go up in the elevator and it blows air through them to blow all the chaff out. When they fall back down, them 10-cent beans that they just paid the farmer for cost you 35 cents now. And he spent 6 months tilling ground, planting and harvesting to get 10 cents a pound for him. And that man at the elevator spent 1 hour probably and doubled his price. Now they're going to sell them to the grocery store and they're going to go up again, you see. This is the vicious cycle we have. But you better take care of the farmers because they're raising all your food.
Probably do the hardest work too.
For sure.
I don't have any more questions, so if you want to say anything else, you can go ahead.
Oh, well, I don't know what to say there. I don't know what you want to know or what to tell you.
I can't think of any more.
But you see, even the doctors and some of them people, when they would go out, it used to be they'd come to your house if you were sick, you know, and because transportation, there just wasn't that much transportation back in those days. And if a doctor come out, why, maybe you'd have a couple of dressed chickens to give him for coming out so he'd have something to eat, or give him a bushel of apples or a bushel of potatoes or something like that. Because, like I said before, there wasn't any money to speak of in Depression days because there wasn't any jobs. And if you had a job, you couldn't hardly earn enough to buy groceries with it. And everybody several years back had big families because they needed them. A farmer needed a whole crew of kids to hoe the corn, you know, and this kind of stuff. So they had big families, and it took a lot of food and clothes and stuff to raise a family. But like I say, you didn't have 6 pairs of shoes. You had 1 pair you hoed corn in and you wore to school, and the other pair you had to go to church in. And it's just a different way of life, Darren. I don't think half the people living nowadays could even exist like I was brought up. They wouldn't know what to do. You didn't run to the grocery store and buy you a steak. You had to kill that cow and get that steak yourself. And you made your own bread. You didn't run to the store and buy a loaf of bread. And the farmers used to sell milk. Some farmers didn't raise cows. They raised hogs. So maybe you'd supply the neighbor with milk, and he'd bring you a slab of bacon or something, you know, stuff like that.
Instead of food that's traded.
Yeah, traded. They trade and barter. They called it the barter system. But that's the way it happened, you know. If you needed a load of hay to feed your cows, why, maybe you didn't have enough hay that year, so you take the neighbor over 300 or 400 pounds of potatoes maybe to last him all winter, and give him enough corn to feed his hogs for a while, and he gives you a load of hay. This is the way that things happen. It's just different. And the people are different. Some of us are the same people, but the world has changed. You know.
Keep on changing things.
Yeah. We had quite a few apple trees. And a man back here, the name of Mylan Phillips, had a cider press. So we'd load up a load of apples. Dad put 3 50-gallon wooden barrels on there, see, and take them over and have cider made out of. And then one barrel, we'd boil it down. Us kids used to have to keep the fire going and stir in a big brass kettle, boil down this cider till it gets thick enough to make apple butter. Mama put spices and stuff in that. And that was our winter eating, everything. And one barrel, we'd let go to vinegar because you had to pickle everything you kept. If you wanted beets or pickles or she used to stuff mangoes with cabbage and put them down and pickle them. And everything was pickled. Boiled eggs, when you had too many eggs, you boil them and drop them in the beet jar so they'd be red and color up your potato salad when you sliced them, And everything was pickled or smoked. The meat, you smoked your meat. The beef you couldn't smoke. You didn't kill it till it got cold. You canned whatever you could can, canned beef. The rest of it would probably freeze hanging down in the corn crib, and you had to go down there with an axe and chop off a hunk to bring up to boil it, to make soup or whatever you wanted to do out of it. To stew or anything, But it was a different way of life. You just couldn't run to the grocery store and buy everything because you didn't have any money to go in to begin with.
Necessity.
You lived out of necessity, that's right. And you didn't, most of the farm people, they couldn't afford to hire a mechanic. They had to fix their own tractors and grease their own wagons and all this kind of stuff. They didn't have anybody you could call to come out and do that in those days. Most of the tractors, there was a few tractors. Ford came out with one. They used to call them Fords, and John Deere had one of steel wheels. And International, they called them McCormick Deerings. They had a tractor with steel wheels, but you had to be a rich man to own that. Most everybody used horses. No, I can't think of anything, Darren. I don't know really what you want to know, but
pretty much covered.
Well, I hope that helps you.
That was fine. Thanks.
Yeah.